We're up and running on YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
We're up and running on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Are you gonna give it back to me?
That's Rebecca's nodding. Okay, it's 9:06. Are we ready to get started?
Hold on 1 second, Karen. Let me see which interpreter is gonna go first so that I can spotlight them. Beverly, are you gonna go first?
Yes, this is Beverly. I'm going to go first. Sydney will come up and then I will announce the switch if you like it that way.
That's fine. Okay, Karen, we're ready.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do an overview of the virtual meeting guidance for panel attendees. Please make sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. If you wish to speak, kindly use the hand symbol or the chat box to indicate that you would like to be acknowledged. Moving on to roll call. If you would speak out so that we can know that you're online, because some of the icons for people connected on Zoom are initials instead of the whole name. So Kari Balaz.
She is not here. She was scheduled to work instead.
Okay. Lisa Balaz.
Here.
Jennifer Blakely.
Here.
Cameron Carden.
Here.
Allie Cunningham. Valencia Curry. Wanda Dial.
Here.
Leanna Feely. Jason Fisher.
Here.
Thank you. Shanquelle Horton.
Here.
Evandra Jackson. Jane Lamb. Holly Knott.
Here.
Jean Marzullo. Karen McKelvey. Ashley McElroy. Tiffany Moore. Jessica Pelt. Mercy Pilkington.
I'm here.
Hank Poor. Kathy Poor. Lisa Powell. LaDonna Rudolph.
I'm present.
Thank you. Kate Simmons.
Here.
Danielle Sylvester. Shanna Smith. Katie Stewart.
Here.
Richard Templeton.
Here.
Shanika Weatherly. Trinicia Williams. And Rebecca Zanotti.
Here.
Thank you all for being here this morning. We have two new members that I'd like to introduce. One is Wanda Dial, and the other is Jennifer Blakely. Welcome, Wanda and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we are going to approve the minutes from the February 19th, 2025 meeting. We'll vote to approve the December 16th, 2024 minutes sent to you via email. Who makes a motion to approve the minutes?
This is LaDonna Rudolph. I move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you. Second?
This is Lisa Balaz. I second.
Thank you both. Okay. The overview of the advisory panel and panel purpose and duties. The advisory panel's purpose is described in the provisions of 20 U.S. Code Section 1412A21 and 34 CFR Sections 300.167 through 300.169 to advise the state education agency on issues related to special education and to promote communication and cooperation among individuals involved with children and youth with disabilities. The duties and advisory panel function are listed under IDEA CFR Section 300.169. Advise the SEA of unmet needs within the state in the education of children and youth with disabilities. Comment publicly on any rules or regulations proposed by the state regarding the education of children with disabilities. To advise the SEA in developing evaluations and reporting on data to the Secretary under Section 618, 300.169C. To advise the SEA in developing corrective action plans to address findings identified in federal monitoring reports. And to advise the SEA in developing and implementing policies relating to the coordination of services for children with disabilities. Are there any questions? Okay, next we have a student assessment services presentation from the State Department of Education, Student Assessment Administrator, Mr. Tyler Merrill. The topic is an overview of state testing.
Good morning. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, again, I'm Tyler Merrill with Student Assessment, and I will be providing a presentation today on the overview of state assessments. The ACAP assessments and the policy of the Alabama State Board of Education is to have a unified, coordinated state assessment. The Alabama Comprehensive Assessment Program, or referenced as ACAP, is a system of assessments that measure the knowledge and abilities of students in Alabama's public schools for the following purposes. To purposes of individual students, to provide information to assist local and state educational personnel in reviewing and planning for instructional and curricular improvements, and to provide information to local and state educational personnel, policymakers, and the public regarding the educational performance of Alabama students. Here's a list of all of these state required assessments. We have the Access for ELs, which are for grades K through 12, and it assesses reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The Alternate Access for ELs. This is for grades 1 through 12, assessing the same areas. The ACAP Alternate for grades 2, 8, 10, and 11 for English Language Arts and Math. And then grades 4, 6, 8, 10, and 11 for science. The ACAP Summative, or for grades 2 through 8 for English Language Arts and Math, grades 4, 6, and 8 for science. The ACT with writing, grades 11, and it assesses reading, English, writing, math, and science. The pre-ACT, secure, and that is for grades 10, and it assesses reading, English, math, and science. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, this is strictly for grades 4 and 8, and this is selected schools throughout the state. And each year, that is at random. And then the ACT work keys, this is an optional assessment that the districts can choose to participate in. And it is for grades 12, and it focuses on workplace documents, applied math, and graphic literacy. So how does special education and assessment work? And what is an IEP? So we want to think of the individual education program, or the IEP, as a roadmap designed specifically for a student with a disability who needs special education services. It is a written document created by a team to outline the student's unique learning need and how the school will address those. The purpose is to help the students make progress in their education, and it is a legal document ensuring that students receive a free, appropriate public education. So understanding IEPs and state assessment and how they work together. The IEP teams make important decisions for students with special needs, such as ACAP assessment participation. IEPs are the cornerstone of a student's special education journey. They ensure individualized support and planning. The IEP team collaborates to ensure a fair and accurate assessment of a student's progress and abilities, including decisions about ACAP participation. Is on the IEP team. Parents and guardians, and they're key members, and their input is vital to making the correct decisions and promoting gains throughout the year. Students, when appropriate, and their voice and perspective are important, especially as they get older. The general education teacher, they're there and they provide the information on the general curriculum and classroom expectations. Special education teacher has the expertise in working with students with disabilities. School psychologists or counselors, they can provide insights into learning and behavior. School administrators, they represent the school and its resources. And then related service providers as needed or applicable. And this could include speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, etc. Accommodations for state assessments. We first need to understand that accommodations are changes to how a student takes a test, but they do not change what the test measures. The goal is to allow the student to show what they know and can do without being hindered by their disability. An important note to this is accommodations must be necessary to provide equal access and cannot lower the learning expectations or change the content of the assessment. Students should consistently use their designated accommodations during regular classroom instruction and assessments to ensure familiarity and effective use during state testing. We never want a student to take a state assessment with accommodations being implemented the very first time. They should have prior exposure and practice with those. This process involves understanding the student's needs. The IEP team reviews the student's disability and how it impacts their learning and what supports they use in the classroom. They need to identify appropriate accommodations. Based on the student's needs, the team considers various accommodations allowed by the state. These might include presentation, how the test is given. Examples may be large print, audio. Responses, how the student answers. This may include using a scribe or assistive technology to respond. Setting, where the test is taken. This could be small group, individualized, or individual one-on-one assessments, or whole group. And then timing, how long the student has. This could be extended time, multiple days. Just considering what the student's needs are and how to best provide that assessment. And then documenting in the IEP. Any accommodations the students will use on state assessments are clearly written and supported by their IEP. Which state assessment should a student take? As previously discussed, there are a list of different assessments under the ACAP. And the decision about which state assessment a student takes is also made by the IEP team. And this decision is based on several factors. One being the grade level. Students participate in the assessment for their enrolled grade.
Excuse me, Terry, we're going to switch interpreters now. Okay. Just a minute. You can go ahead now.
All right, and I'll just restart with this one. The decision about which state assessment a student takes is also made by the IEP team. This decision is based on several factors, one being the grade level. Students participate in the assessment for their enrolled grade. Their IEP goals. The team considers the student's individual goals and needs. The general curriculum. For most students with IEPs, the goal is to participate in the general curriculum and take the ACAP summative and ACT with accommodations. The alternate assessment is for students with the most significant cognitive disability, and this is a small percentage of students who cannot participate in the ACAP summative or ACT even with extensive accommodations. This is an alternate assessment aligned to alternate achievement, academic achievement standards, and this decision is made using specific state criteria. Just something that we really want to focus on is the purpose of this is to promote student progress, and lifelong success is the driving force behind both thoughtful assessment decisions and the collaborative efforts of the IEP team. Understanding how the IEP team determines accommodations for state assessments and makes informed choices about assessment participation empowers us all to contribute to a nurturing and suitable educational environment for students with disabilities. Our goal is to ensure students experience success in school and throughout their lives. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss with you student assessment, how we work with special education to address the individual needs of our students. Again, I'm Tyler Merrill. I'm the Student Assessment Administrator, and my email and direct line are listed below. If you ever have any questions regarding state assessments or and how it relates to special education or to our students, please don't hesitate to reach out and call. And we are more than willing to help and support in any way.
Thank you so much, Tyler. We appreciate it. Are there any public comments?
No public comments have been received.
Okay. Then we will move on to the ALSDE SES Director's Report, if Dr. Chambers is ready.
Yes, I am ready. Give me 1 second to get my PowerPoint up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. I think maybe I have to start sharing first and then put it up. Hold on, let me see. Okay. Is that slide showing?
Yes, it is.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Glad to be with you today. So these are the things that I would like to cover today. I started the last meeting talking about exciting times for the panel. I want to build upon that and give you some more encouragement and also some questions about where you might go from your position right now, the situation you're in right now. I have some transition updates. I want to talk to you about the assistive technology lending library. I want to give you an update on the special initiatives grants that I told you about at the last meeting. And then also we want to talk about the Part B application again and give you some specific questions related to the Part B application that's out for public comment right now. So my comment last time about the exciting times for the panel centered around the fact that you have strong officers in place right now, that we had a situation where it was almost time for Graham to roll off of the panel. And so he said, you know what, I'm ready to no longer be the chair of the panel as I roll off, since I'm about to roll off. And so as you have strong officers in place, appreciate Karen and Lisa stepping forward to be chair and co-chair. Also, the rest of you who are leading committees, I just commend you for the volunteer work that you're doing in those positions. And I don't always do this, but you know, while you have strong officers in place and you're kind of resetting things with these new officers, I would encourage you to review the panel's bylaws, make sure that the information related to the format of the meetings, the structure of the officers, you know, the different types of officers you have, review that information and just make sure that, you know, I know you have a bylaws committee. And so as, you know, through the bylaws committee and also as a full panel, I would encourage you to be looking at the bylaws and seeing if you think that any changes need to be made, because now would be the time to do that as you're starting out fresh with the new set of officers and starting your work. One of the things that I have encountered in other groups that I just wanted to mention, and I don't know if it's a consideration for this panel, but you know, you have chair and co-chair. Some of the other groups have a chair and a chair-elect, like an incoming chair. And so instead of doing chair and co-chair, they do chair and chair-elect so that you know, like that the chair, and then they do past chair. And so it would be, you know, like while you're the chair, there would also be a past chair who is just exiting, and then a chair-elect who's going to move into that position. Just something I thought I would mention. It may not work for this particular group if you have rules in place that allow the chair to have like a second term or whatever. I'm not really sure about all the different details, but I would just encourage you as you take on this task of being new officers and kind of having a reset for the panel as far as where we are in things and in the cycle of things, then recommend that you review the bylaws and then also review the committee structure. I think I've heard some questions recently about, you know, well, what does this committee do or what does that committee do? And so as you're researching the function of each committee, I would encourage you to talk and determine and decide whether or not, you know, do we need different committees? Do we need something else that is that would be helpful? Yes, I will make sure that you get a copy of my presentation. Sorry, let me pull myself back together. Review the committee structure as far as the committees and making sure that the committees are meeting the panel's needs, right? If the committees aren't meeting the panel's needs, then by all means, talk about what committees you think you should have. Okay, so under the transition updates, as you know, that there is a legislated requirement that in order to graduate, children have high school children, seniors who are graduating, in order to graduate, they have to have a college and career readiness indicator. Now, there's various ways that children can complete the CCR indicator, and we're excited to say that a lot of our children with disabilities on the different pathways do in fact earn a college and career readiness indicator. The CCR is required for all students. I think there's been a misunderstanding that in the past that it was only for kids on the general education pathway. It's actually for all students. And we're excited to say that kids on the essentials pathway sometimes get a CCR through different ways, maybe through credentialing through a career tech program, or a certain score on the ACT, different types of, there's a list of enumerated type CCR things that are outlined as far as how children can earn their CCR. We've also have in place now where a child who's on the essential pathway, if they meet all the requirements for the essentials pathway, because that includes a work component, it includes career tech classes and a work component. Children who complete the requirements for the essentials pathway can earn a CCR that way. So, as far as the children who are on the alternate achievement standards pathway, the AAS, then the law that was passed allows for children who are on a special ed, children who graduate with a special ed diploma, the requirement can be waived for them. And so it actually can be waived for the children who are on the AAS pathway, but we are finding that children on the AAS pathway can in fact achieve a marker for college and career readiness. And so it doesn't have to be waived for them, but it can be waived for them. So the other new thing that I wanted to tell you about, you may or may not have heard, but also came to us through legislation. Legislation was passed to say that we would have, we're calling it option B. The general education pathway option A is the traditional program that you might have heard, where it's 4 classes and 4 content areas, plus a certain number of electives and other requirements for physical education and health and electives and whatnot. So there's general education pathway option A, which is like what we've had in the past. Now adding on option B, the change with option B is that the 2 of the mathematics courses and 2 of the science courses have now been replaced with workforce type career tech classes and work training and electives. And so, and those electives could be other career tech classes. And so for option B, they, take career tech classes in a sequence, they do work training, and then have, a few additional electives. So we have gotten questions about how that will impact their participation on the ACT. And I just want to assure everybody that we are constantly discussing the testing options. We're constantly discussing the, diploma options and how these interact with each other and play with each other. And so we do currently test using the ACT in 11th grade. But we're always looking at, every couple of years, we are looking at, is that the best plan? Is that what we want to continue with? And so, yes, currently for right now, that is what we're doing. It's always up for discussion as to whether or not changes need to be made as we change based on the legislation that we have. So the CCR came about through legislation. The general education pathway option B, which has a workforce component, also came about through legislation. And so just wanted to make sure you're aware of these things and let you know that we are constantly evaluating and assessing the unintended consequences of different things like this. And do we need to make other changes, make other announcements, and pivot and address things. So it's always evolving, and we're excited about that.
We're going to be switching interpreters. You can go ahead.
Thank you. We're very excited about our participation in the Assistive Technology Lending Library.
Chambers, hold on one moment. Hold on one moment, please. Okay, we're ready.
So the Assistive Technology Lending Library is a partnership between the Alabama State Department of Education and the Alabama Department of Rehab Services. The Alabama Department of Rehab Services is actually, I would say, managing the day-to-day operations of the lending library. We participate in decision-making, financial support, and are excited about this opportunity for school districts to check out technology for their students to test it before buying something for a student. And so it gives the opportunity to ensure that the appropriate piece of equipment, the appropriate piece of assistive technology is the right fit for the child before actually making the final purchase. And so we're super excited about that. We've gotten reports that this is gonna open all kinds of opportunities for kids. And in fact, in the past, sometimes IEP teams were nervous to talk about assistive technology, not knowing about the cost or about whether or not it would really work for children. And so we're super excited to be in this endeavor with the Alabama Department of Rehab Services. So at the last meeting, I told you that we had just put out a memo for special initiatives grants. And these are grants to school districts. We have not yet awarded these amounts, but in the coming days, we potentially could award these particular amounts to school districts for these different topics. And I just want to tell you again what the topics are under the special initiatives grant. First is Project Search. That's a national type it requires licensing, and it's where a school district partners with a local business in order to do work training for students with disabilities who are in the transition phase of high school, where they're getting ready to exit high school, and they actually go out and work in the business. And so Project Search requires licensing fees, and then there's other expenses. And so we are supporting a reimbursement for the licensing fees. We're supporting travel to the National Project Search Conference. And then sometimes kids need uniforms or different things for the Project Search activity. So we're real excited about those grant applications that we received. For transition projects, I can't remember exactly how many. I think I wrote down how many we received. Let's see. Transition outcomes projects, we received 19 applications, I believe. And so if all of those get funded, then that would be $364,000. And so excited about the opportunity to potentially announce those awards in the next couple of days. For TSEC, as you can see, that was a huge investment. Temporary special education certificate. Those are teachers who have come in to teaching special education grades 6 through 12. They have a bachelor's degree, and in order to be in a special education classroom teaching children in grades 6 through 12, they've agreed to take 5 college classes. They do 6 modules that are State Department developed. They have to do field experiences, and they have to participate in mentoring. And so they are allowed 3 years to complete all of those requirements. During the 3 years, they are allowed to teach a special education classroom at the middle school or high school level. And so we know that, tuition costs money. They're trying to do, numerous things at the same time. And so even though they are a full-time teacher, we wanted to do something to support the effort that they're making in order to get certified as a special ed teacher. And so last year we had an option where we awarded money to districts for the school district to be able to provide a participant fee for these teachers for $600 per module that they completed. And then I may not have mentioned that after they do these things, if they pass the praxis for special education, then they can get their permanent certificate. And so we added in a feature where completing modules is a participant fee, and then also passing the praxis is a participant fee. And so when you add it up, then this is money that helps go towards it's not tied to the courses per se, it's tied to completing the modules and it's tied to passing the praxis, but it is money that they can use towards textbooks and their college tuition and whatnot. Parent training and counseling, I think I told you last time, I am super excited about that. I was at a conference with other state directors of special education, and one of the states told about how they were supporting districts to provide counseling for families, for parents and families. And so I came back and tried to think of a way that we could also support something around that idea. And so that's where parent training and counseling became a part of the special initiative grants. And we received, we received 11 applications for that. We still, the window for round 2 has closed, but we're evaluating the situation and looking to see if we might still have some time to receive some more applications in that area. But I'm telling you, I sat down and I looked at these grant applications and I was so excited about the training and the opportunities that school districts want to provide for parents and families, and around special ed topics, around how to, you know, handle behaviors at home to support what's going on at school, just all kinds of really fun and exciting things that school districts are trying to do for parents and families. And we hope to expand that over time. Like I said, we're still trying to figure out how much more time we have for this fiscal year to do more. So let me skip back up to the transition outcome-oriented projects. Last year, special initiatives included preschool grants. This year, we switched it up to do high school transition grants. We didn't have quite as many grants this year for transition as we did for preschool last year, but let's see, we had 19 grants, and in the coming days, we hope to award that amount of money to those projects. I was really excited to read those grant applications and see all of the innovative type things that school districts are proposing to do to help prepare kids with disabilities for adult life and for that transition out into work and living. And so I know when I first started talking about putting the special initiative grants, when I first started talking about putting transition outcome oriented projects into special initiatives, somebody said to me, but Dr. Chambers, they're required to do transition. The school districts have to do it. Why would you be, providing money when they have to do it? And I said, yes, absolutely, they have to do it, and they are doing it, and they're doing a good job at it. But why wouldn't we want to support like the expansion of those activities that they have, or the enhancement of those activities? So super excited about all of that. School improvement is for schools that are designated for the subgroup of special education. And we talked to, so that's a limited number of districts who would even qualify for that. It's by invitation only. Last year, we had a specific activity that we invited those schools to be a part of. This year, we've been entertaining conversations with the school districts themselves to see if they had ideas they wanted to pitch. And there have been a couple of school districts that have said, that have either already applied or have something pending that they want to apply for. And so we're really excited about that opportunity to try to make improvement within schools that are designated for needing to make improvement around the subgroup of special education students. So more to come on that. We also are entertaining some other ideas about how to help those schools that have that special designation based on the special ed population subgroup. So that moves me into talking with you about the Part B application. It's called an application because it's where we apply to the federal government to get our money each year. And so that's why it's called the IDEA Part B application. within the application, the state has to make assurances that we're doing specific things that we're required to do. And then we also have to talk about the maintenance of financial support. Maintenance of financial support for the state is where we show that we are continuing to make available the same amount of state funds that we did in the previous year. So always want to make sure that states aren't, using federal funds to be able to decrease the amount of state funds they make available for special education and for special education activities. And so part of our Part B application is where we sign off on certain assurances. Part of the application is where we talk about what was our state funded financial support for last year and the year before, like what is it this year and what was it last year. And then the grant part or the budget part is where we talk about our state level activities and where we put money into certain line items. And so within the line items, there's 2 required activities that the federal government says you must put money into these 2 categories. The first is monitoring, enforcement, and complaint investigation. So that's where we pay for our hearing officers and our monitoring, our state level monitoring that we do of the districts, and for our complaint investigations for our written state complaints. So that's a required activity. Another required activity is that we implement a mediation process. So that's where we pay for our mediators. And so beyond that, then there's also, so there's those 2 required activities that we are happy to support and put line items into our budget for. Then beyond that, here are some other areas that are considered optional authorized activities. And so within each of those areas, then the state designates how much of our state set aside do we wish to put into those categories. And so then throughout the fiscal year, those are the categories in which our activities fall. And then our activities correspond with the amount of money that we said we would put into those activities. And so what I would encourage you to do is not get hung up on those areas and those activities, but rather think about, just like we did with special initiatives, we wanted to target certain things. And so if there are certain things that the panel thinks that the state set aside money should support, now keep in mind, the majority of the money that we get filters directly to the districts. So we send the majority of the money straight to the districts. And so what we're talking about here is the amount of money that the state is allowed to set aside for state directed activities, where we get to decide where are we going to put the focus, and based on data, based on information from you, based on information from the districts, what activities do we want to put our money behind within these categories. And as you can see, some of the categories, there seems to be overlap, or it's hard to tell what would go in which category. I wouldn't get so hung up on these particular categories, but rather think about, where do you think there's an unmet need in our state? And where do you think, what kind of activities could we use to meet that? And then talk to us about, how soon we could consider those ideas and determine if those, could go into the current budget, they need to be held for a next budget. But by all means, we are always open. We routinely use data and information from the districts to figure out what's needed for the state set aside funds and how we can best support. But we also would love to hear from you if you're hearing from people out in the schools and the community on unmet needs for children with disabilities. We would love to hear about ideas for how to expand the ways in which we help people. In particular, right now, an extra need for the input is centered around our preschool activities and what we're doing to help preschoolers with disabilities have positive outcomes, successfully integrate into kindergarten and elementary school. And so if you have ideas on ways in which the state could support those activities, love to hear from you on anything you think would help that you feel like we should consider as part of our budget. But in particular, if you have ideas about preschool, that would be very timely.
We're going to switch interpreters real quick.
And that is my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. So I will turn it back over to Karen. But again, I thank Karen and Lisa and all of you for, everything you're doing to strongly support the education of children with disabilities in Alabama. And we're happy that you're willing to partner with us and help us do the best job we can do.
Thank you so much, Dr.
I'm
Chambers.
sorry. Dr. Chambers, before you leave, there was a question.
Sure.
It says, does the Linden Library include apps with a device that lets schools and students try a specific app before purchase?
So I'm not sure about that, but I am guessing it probably does, because the question about the apps is that, used to assistive technology was like a certain machine or a certain computer, and now assistive technology can be an iPad with certain software on it. And so I'm guessing it probably does, but I can find out for certain if that's a yes or a no, but I'm guessing it probably does.
Okay.
We have another question, Dr. Chambers. Cameron Carden has one. Cameron, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
This is Cameron. Thank you. Dr. Chambers, in thinking about the transition from teaching strategy, from ELP to teaching strategies gold at the preschool level, I'm on this committee as a parent, but I also teach speech pathology graduate students. And I was wondering if there was any access to a training for graduate students in special education speech pathology on how to use GOLD that we could be implementing at the undergraduate or graduate level in order to prepare, like in my context, speech pathologists going out into the schools to be more prepared to use GOLD, because I as a speech path find it a little bit more rigorous and maybe challenging to use than I did the ELP. And so I was just wondering if that's something that is available or could be available. I know I would be so grateful just to be able to provide some instruction before sending out speech path grad students to the schools.
That is an excellent question and something I'll have to check on. I know that it's funny that you asked about GOLD, because we regularly get questions about access to PowerSchool, and we have been working on trying to see what we could do about that. And so in relation to the PowerSchool question, I always say, the colleges should start by dealing with the mechanics of the requirements, and then that way the college students who are going to be service providers later on would be prepared for the technical part of the program if you start with the mechanics part. But by all means, and I would say the same thing about GOLD, that you would start by talking about the standards that are being tested or measured through the GOLD, and you would talk about the instruction or the services that go with that. And then the complementary piece to that would be, okay, this is how you use the computer program to, do the entry assessment and do the exit checklist. And so, great question. And I will definitely check to see what the options are.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers.
I
Kate,
guess one thing I forgot to say that some of you might not know, that Cameron knows because of the gold. So we have a state performance plan, annual performance report indicator related to preschool outcomes, where we're required to measure, like as preschoolers enter into a special education preschool program, and I don't mean that program as in like that's where they're located. I mean, as they enter into special education as a preschooler and are included out in centers and different places that they're receiving their instruction that goes along with their special education and related services, we have to measure where they were on certain outcomes as they entered and as they exit the preschool program. And so the GOLD is the tool that we use to measure those outcomes related to developmental skills, related to socialization, and different outcomes that we're required to measure. And so that's the reason I was saying that, you know, an obvious first step would be to be looking at the standards, the preschool standards that are being measured, and then the support and instruction that goes along with making progress in those areas. And then a complementary piece to that would be understanding the computer program or the software or the platform that we use for recording where the kids are on those certain outcomes. So thank you for that question. And I will definitely follow up and check to see what the options are and what it would take to make something available.
And where can we get a copy, or the data committee can get a copy of those benchmarks and the assessment, so that it can further inform what recommendations they make?
So our preschool people would be able to help you access that information. And so we'll make sure that you get connected.
This
Okay.
is Cameron. I'm sorry. I have the preschool standards, and I also went through the gold training as a doc student at Alabama. So it was fantastic with Kaylin Kirch in the special education department, or in the elementary education department. So I have a copy of the gold and the standards, of course, and we make the standards available to our students. I just am uncomfortable sharing my copy of the gold and all of those things because I obtained it as a student and don't know what the open access rules are and all of that. So, but I have a copy internally we could review. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Hello. How are you doing? My name is Wanda Dial, and I'm new to the group. I'm the education disability specialist for the Head Start program. We also use it. I train on it, and the standards are aligned with the states as well as the Head Start framework, and I do train on it. So if you need assistance with that, or I will be available.
Okay, thank you, Wanda. That's great.
Just so that you can look at it. Okay.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dr. Chambers, we had one more question from Kate Simmons. Kate, if you would like to ask your question.
Sure. Okay, so could you talk a little bit, if you know, go back to the general education Part B option? Is there a part in there for students who are really gifted in AI and coding to really kind of channel into that area also, or are we just talking about workforce ideas?
So there's certain workforce requirements that came along with that option but I'd be glad to talk to you about your question specifically. I mean, I'm gonna go with, there were specific requirements that came along with that. So that's gonna be the current focus. But to completely follow your question or whatever, we could talk offline and you can tell me more about what you're specifically wondering. And but I'm gonna go with, the requirements for that were not 100% scripted, but pretty scripted.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers. Thanks for your question, Kate. Now that it's been an hour, we're going to take a short 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and wrap up wrap up the meeting. So we'll see everyone back at 10:10. Thank you. Okay, it is, well, it just turned 10:13. I wanted to give everybody just a little bit more time to return to the meeting. But it looks like everyone is back, so we will go on and continue. Next, we are going to have committee reports. And so first up is the membership committee. Committee Chair Lisa Belaz, would you like to give your report?
Good morning, everybody. We don't have any new members to approve at this point in time, though we are always seeking members who are either self-advocates or are parents of self-advocates. I don't know of any other open positions right now. I do know that my term ends in June, so we will also be looking for a new co-chair to go along with Karen. So, just keep that in mind. So if you know of anybody and you want to direct them to the ALSD page, I can send that out in an email.
Thank you. That would be great, Lisa. We appreciate that. Okay, next, the bylaws committee. And before I took this position, I was the chair of the bylaws committee. I think about a year ago, we updated the bylaws, but it's always great to at least have a committee to read through them every year. You may not necessarily need to make an update every year, but Dr. Chambers earlier in the meeting gave us some things to think about. So the chair for the bylaws committee is open, and if you think you might be interested in it, please email me and let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. It's not terribly time intensive. And also, folks that are interested in serving on the bylaws committee, please email me and let me know. We will move on to stakeholder and public engagement committee. The chair is Katie Stewart. Katie, would you like to give us an update?
Hello, good morning. This was actually the first meeting that we've had since I've been chair. And it was a great meeting. What we did was we met and discussed the public comments that were given to everybody at the last meeting. We kind of researched these issues, and we developed sort of a collective response based on those. We have turned that over to the people at the committee just so that they will have those. What I've been informed is that it's not necessarily something where we respond to public comments per se, but that we let the people know that we do research those issues and that we're aware of their issues, and that we have some information available if needed. But I really appreciate our committee getting together and their time to develop those responses, and look forward to meeting with them again the next time that we convene.
Thank you so much, Katie. And members of the Stakeholder and Public Engagement Committee. Next up is the Student Achievement and Data Committee. The chair is Cameron Carden. Cameron, if you would like to give your report.
This is Cameron. I, first of all, just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Card and Dr. Green at the State Department. They have met with the data committee multiple times in order to provide information to us about the state's current SPP APR data. And really, just as a reminder, the primary function of this committee is to review alongside the State Department. The State Department, and specifically Dr. Card and Dr. Green, provide us with information about how Alabama is doing meeting the indicator, the SPP APR indicators. And then for the ones that that Alabama is not meeting the target and are also areas of slippage, we try to get together as a data committee and make recommendations based upon our understanding that could support the larger mission of meeting those targets. One really good thing about this committee is that it's quite diverse as far as professional and parental experience. So I think that there are a variety of voices that have been involved in this, and for that, I think that that's a real plus of the committee. There are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 indicators or parts of indicators. And if at any point someone at the State Department needs to correct any information I provide from your I'm basically transferring that information from you all back to the committee. There are 5 parts of indicators that we did not meet the target and reported slippage. And these are the indicators that are not compliance indicators. So the target is not 100% and either you met it or you didn't. These are the ones that the state, in conjunction with stakeholders, sets the targets for the compliance targets. So we reviewed those 5 indicators as a committee and then made just some recommendations as a committee that we would then like to share with the full SEAP panel. And if those are approved, then they would go to the State Department as our recommendations from SEAP about maybe how our input on how progress toward these indicators could be improved. I'm just going to provide kind of some overarching recommendations. And then what I'd prefer to do is email these or have Latasha or Karen email these out so that you can review them between now and the next meeting. Because I think it's a lot of information that really isn't fully digestible in this short amount of time. What we would just say as far as general recommendations based upon these indicators is that we can see that there might need to be some improved communication with parents, maybe through advocacy groups for increasing understanding and participation about, for example, participation in ACAP not being optional, but rather mandatory, which might be one point of confusion contributing to lack of participation and then not meeting the target.
Excuse me, we're going to switch interpreters now.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Another kind of overarching recommendation would be, and understanding that this is a priority for the State Department, but us kind of reiterating the importance in investing in high quality training for special education personnel, which is essential to improving instructional practices and student outcomes. A critical review of potential standards and assessments, particularly with regard to the AAA standards and the ACAP alternate assessment. And then just, of course, data-driven decision-making, specifically with regard to one of the last indicator, 14B, about post-school outcomes. We just have some questions about how that survey is disseminated, how it's worded, and whether or not there might be some barriers in those ways, which are contributing to a lack of compliance. The only one that I'll highlight that we felt like maybe the bar was set a little bit too high. And so maybe there needs to be a reevaluation of the appropriateness of the current target rather than processes to meet the target is related to the least restrictive environment indicators, specifically the percentage of the day that children are served inside the class, less than 40% of the day, the children that are categorized under that least restrictive environment. We really just felt like maybe the target is too high. And so adjusting the target in order to consider the diverse needs of students and individualized instruction might be better than trying to find paths forward, action steps forward to increase access. I think, and I think the committee believes that if IEP teams are prioritizing the individualized needs of the students, and that results in being in the general education classroom, less time for some students, that's just a tension between what the federal government requires and what IEP teams are trying to do to individualize services. So if it's okay, I would like to just send this by email for review, and then you all can, I'll send the recommendations and then maybe a Google form for you to comment on. And if you could just everyone do that between now and the next meeting, that would be great. I also want to just ask, because the two members that were on our meeting on Monday, Richard Templeton is here, and also Jennifer Blakely. If you have anything additional to add with regard to the recommendations.
No, I think you did a nice job of doing an overview of that. I think that, to your point, with regard to several different components, the IDA and how we implement those, everyone can agree on the why, that we should hold students, to these ambitious standards, but they do need to be appropriately ambitious. And that a lot of these recommendations are trying to address some of the conflict between IEP teams making decisions and then federal agencies trying to hold states and IEP teams to a standard that's really a conflict between what the IDA requires and the implementation of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for providing that, Richard, with regard to, and you'll see in the recommendations that really is an overarching theme of understanding the tension, but as Richard said, appropriately ambitious. You can also, as you review this, email me and let me know if you have any questions. But again, I do just want to thank Dr. Card and Dr. Green for the amount of time that they've spent with the data committee, providing information about these targets and indicators. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Cameron, and the Student Achievement and Data Committee. We appreciate your work. We'll move on to old business. Does anyone have any old business that they would like to discuss? Any members of the panel? Okay, if there's no old business to discuss, we'll move on. I don't know that there's much new business. We would like to find a chair for the bylaws committee and get some folks who would be interested in serving on the bylaws committee. So if that sounds like something you would like to do, please email me and let me know. I'm more than happy to speak with you about it. And we will move on to panel member news with Latasha Kendrick.
I just have two things. Just want to make the panel aware of two upcoming conferences. We have the APEC, which is the Alabama Parent Education Center, Raising the Standards Conference. It is a virtual 2-day conference, April the 15th through the 17th. And more information, well, you will need to register for the conference if you would like to attend. And registration and more information can be found at alabamaparentcenter.com. And then we have the Alabama Technology Conference that is coming up in June 18th through the 20th. It will be in Mobile, Alabama. And more information can be found at Alabam, that's ALABAM, AETC.com.
Okay, thank you so much, Latasha. We appreciate it. Are there any additional questions or comments from the panel? Okay, with there being no additional questions or comments, we will adjourn this meeting 10:28 a.m. on April 9th. Our next meeting will be August 20th, 2025. The location is still to be determined right now, but we will keep you updated on that. So be sure to check your email a little later. And we thank you all for your time today and your time every day, making sure that our kids are getting what they need and for serving on SEAP. And if you have any other questions, you can email me, you can email Latasha. We'll be glad to answer them. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.